Okay.
You're on, John.
All right. As all good stories go, this one starts with once upon a time. The year was 1783. It was in France. A couple of paper manufacturers named the Montgolfiers noticed that as they burned their scraps of paper, particles would rise up with the smoke, right? So these guys thought that smoke caused things to rise up. Okay, they did a little experiment. They built a little 4-foot diameter paper balloon, held it up over the smoky fire, and sure enough, this thing lifted off, right? So they thought if they could contain enough of that smoke, they could rise up with it. So they began construction on a balloon that held over 400,000 cubic feet of air. And as a reference, we flew one today that holds 180,000. Okay? So the first balloon was over twice the size of this one. And of course, during the construction of this thing, a king of France heard what these guys were going to do, heard what they were up to, and he called them into the courts and said, you know what, you guys are very prominent Frenchmen, you are the royal paper manufacturers, I cannot allow you to participate in this event because you will be killed. He did, however, offer them these two criminals, saying you guys can have these guys, just clean them up wherever you find them, save me the whole mess, sharpening up the blade and that whole deal. But they thought this was going to be an event remembered throughout history, and they didn't want that honor to go to a couple of crooks. Okay, so they compromised with the king, and they sent up animals on the first balloon flight, right? That's what we do. They sent up a sheep, a rooster, and a duck, okay? But the king was right. The rooster did become the first ballooning casualty, who was killed upon the impact of landing, because he wasn't holding on in two places, he wasn't facing the right direction, and he didn't have his knees slightly bent. So upon landing, the sheep stepped on the rooster, and the rooster died. And of course, the balloon itself was also a casualty, because it flew off into the French countryside, and these French peasants, having never seen anything flying before, saw this thing coming at them. It's bellowing smoke out of it, it's making animal sounds, and these guys did the human thing. Right? They grabbed their pitchforks, and they slayed this awful creature. So shortly thereafter, the first chase crew arrived by horseback. They're heartbroken. This big mess is all their hard work, been completely destroyed by the peasants. But they were happy to find a live sheep and a live duck roaming around, and armed with that information, they could prove to the king over chicken dinner that night that they could survive the sport of ballooning if they could keep the peasants from killing them at the end of the flight. So they started carrying champagne on board as a way to identify themselves as indeed being Earthlings and not some outer space creature. Okay? So 3 years later, you can imagine, the Irish became involved in the sport of ballooning. They were watching these Frenchmen get up and fly these contraptions around and legitimately drink before noon. So being good Irishmen, they were ready to sign up for that activity. And they're the ones who wrote the balloonist prayer, which is how we conclude all of our flights, all right? A little prayer, a little toast. And they were superstitious. They thought it was good luck to catch the cork. You want to catch the cork? Okay. So, try to catch it.
Go catch it. Better get over there.
Yeah, I thought
Oh! That was weak.
I
would have had better catch you guys.
This is the boss.
Go back to school limping, going, man, I got hurt trying to get the cork. Got checked.
got orange juice from Pagosa.
Yes, please.
Grape juice from Pagosa,
There's always usually most of the people from Chicago drink this stuff straight up. So.
Yeah. Not necessarily. I'll rot my gut out.
Are you gonna
All
have
right,
gloves?
So in 1786, these guys were so happy to be alive, they'd crawl out of their baskets, they'd kiss the ground, say their prayer, and drink champagne, okay? But since we do this every day, we're going to skip kissing the ground altogether. Go right into the prayer. The winds have welcomed you with softness, the sun has blessed you with his warm hands. You have flown so high and so well that God has joined you in your laughter and set you gently down into the loving arms of Mother Earth. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud, chin chin.
Chin chin.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, everyone
John got up
stand
and fresh
together.
baked muffins early this morning.
Oh, yeah.